honestly, for me, I'm looking forward to being able to make this a permanent, like, full-time job for our players. And I am excited to see our audience continue to grow.
Hey guys, it's Adam with Akshon Esports, and today I'm speaking with John Teymoorian, the product lead for the HGC. John, thanks for speaking with us.
No problem. It's glad to have you. I'm glad to be here too.
Right on, man. Me too. To start, can you tell us a little bit about what your job entails and how you make the HGC into a reality?
So my job is primarily to really look at the HGC from a strategic standpoint and make sure that we're delivering the most exciting entertainment experiences for Heroes of the Storm Esports to our audiences.
Right on. Sounds like a tough job.
It is a hard job. There's a lot of balancing to do.
For sure. So it seems that every time I talk to somebody from the HGC, the Heroes viewership is always over your projections. Can you give us a progress report on how things have been during 2018?
Yeah.
Is this still the case?
Yeah, it's definitely still the case. So our watched hours, for example, from the first half of 2018 are 20% higher than in 2017. Our mid-season Brawl unique viewership was up 100%. From a global standpoint. And a lot of this is we contribute to the investments that we made in our foreign language channels. So our Russian, French, and German channels that we invested in 2018. We brought those channels. We created those channels, so made them wholly owned and operated, gave them our official broadcast package and upped the quality. And we're seeing that fans that prefer those languages, to prefer to watch the HGC in those languages, are flocking to those channels, and the viewership's going up. Viewership in our base English channel is going up as well, our primary channel. There's that, and then also the combination of like Twitch Drops program that we started with the mid-season Brawl. We were giving away rare loot boxes and profile images themed around the Horde and Alliance for the Alterac Pass release, as well as the launch of HGC Tier 2018. All of these things, I think, combined really helped to make the HGC experience like even bigger around mid-season Brawl. So it was really positive, and a really positive impact on viewership. I think it had a really positive impact on our community because they gave us feedback. They basically all said that it was the best event that we've had to date for Heroes Esports. So all in all, viewership has stayed with us past once the event ended. Its viewership baseline has been higher than it was before the event, the game is performing. Player base is up. So all in all, everything looks really good for Heroes of the Storm and HGC.
Right on. So would you say that this growth has been consistent over the last several years, or is it kind of more erratic, spiking at certain events? And what effect does that have?
I think, so for HGC in 2017, looking back, we always get spikes around our LAN events, just because LAN events kind of end up being like this weekend party around Heroes of the Storm, where you get to see the best players show off new comps with their teams, like new compositions and kind of new skills. In general, viewership has gone up throughout the year. In 2018, we made a bunch of changes to the program. Some of them impacted directly on the broadcast, and some did not. But overall, what we're seeing is that viewership has been going up over pretty much a steady rate from the beginning of 2018. And Mid-Season Brawl made a big boost to that. So
excellent.
Yeah.
So there's a kind of an old theory in YouTube that it's better to have steady, consistent growth than spikes. We've seen how that can be volatile with games like Realm Royale, where they spike and then something changes and they crash.
Yeah.
Starting lower and building up kind of consistently over time, has that given you guys the freedom to kind of try new, wacky, fun things with your strategies that you may not feel comfortable doing had you spiked incredibly right at the beginning?
So I think I know where you're going with this. I think when you spike, I'm trying to figure out how to best answer this question. I think when you see a spike, you see an influx of a lot of viewers that maybe end up becoming engaged in your community, but they're not part of your core audience, and so some of the feedback that you get might be a little bit diluted because of it, and so it makes it more difficult to make the right decision for the community overall. I'm just theorizing when it comes to this sort of thing. With Heroes, we're lucky that we have a really, I think, stable, loyal core audience that has stuck with us over time, and that's slowly grown. Mm-hmm. And so what we're seeing is, when we read feedback, from Reddit, or we get feedback from our community streamers, when we talk to our pros, feedback's pretty much in line. We've been getting kind of like a similar thread of feedback on various things that take place, the various things that we try. And so we feel pretty confident about the decisions that we're making moving forward. They're going to be the right ones for, for the overall program. But, we're always open to taking feedback. We've made changes that didn't pan out the way that we wanted it to, or the way the players or that the community wanted to. So we made changes. Like, for example, before the HGC launched, there were a lot of different programs running for Heroes of Storm Esports. And so one of the pieces of feedback was like, get everything organized, have a one-stop shop where people can go to get all the information about Heroes of the Storm Esports, right? So we created the HGC website so that people could go there and get all the information about what's happening in all of the regions, have it be the source of truth, have a consistent broadcast schedule so people knew when to tune in every week, kind of build that, how should I say, set expectations with the audience to know what's coming and when it should happen. And then also the players were telling us that the only times that they had international rivalries were through BlizzCon, essentially. So like they'd be playing all year against each other in the same territory, and then the only time they would be able to face like international opponents would be at one time at the end of the year.
Right.
And so that's how we kind of introduced the clashes, because this was like direct feedback that we were getting. It's like, let's have international battles happen more often. Let's
see what you're up against before BlizzCon kind of thing.
It's that, and it's also like every territory, kind of every region has a different take on the meta a little bit, and so they have different strategies. And so what you get is this mixing, this spreading of strategic gameplay across the entire world. And so I think the sharing of all of that knowledge is helping to kind of create more parity for competitiveness across all of the regions. So we did that for, this is our second year. And so some of the feedback that we're getting now is like, hey, not all the teams get to go to LAN. Or, we want to have more hype around our region. And so we're looking at changes for 2019 that can kind of help make that a possibility. So I think, we're open to feedback. I don't think there's ever like one right way. I think the community's needs change, the players' needs change, and so we have to be agile and adaptable to make that work.
The bulk of the HGC is obviously done remotely.
Yeah.
So how does running a remote league differ from running live events like this? And are there any challenges unique to that? So
the benefit of running online is that we can get the best players from around the world. We can have more teams participate. I think the biggest challenge with having it be like all in is that people have to move. You have to decide where they're going to live, and I know already right now that there are some pros that are in some notable teams that a lot of fans are really following, and hype about that just wouldn't stay with HGC. So I think there's a give and take there. Also, the challenges are that you don't have them when you don't have them physically in person. It's harder to create content around them. It's harder to create like video footage for create stories and things like that. I think most of it has to be through editorial and other. But it's pretty convenient. It doesn't disrupt the players' lives. And it makes it so that it's really easy for us to create lots of content, lots of matches, right? So I know that I think a lot of the feedback has been like, what's happening with LAN, and what are people like? Is that ever going to happen? And I think it's totally possible, but I think there's a lot of things that we need to weigh, and so it's not just as simple as like just telling every player to go do that, because some of them won't. And so we're trying to make sure that the decisions that we're making are right for the players and ultimately provide the most epic, HGC experiences for our audience. So
right on. So we talked a little bit about team feedback earlier, but as far as viewership feedback, how big a factor would you say that viewership feedback is when you're looking at making some of these decisions? How much do you factor that in?
I think almost equally with our own. Like we're looking at like what people are saying online and what our chat says and things like that. Like we've had a lot of little things that we've been like, oh yeah, that makes sense. We should do this way because like how it is. I think at the end of the day, we're just trying to make a good, fun, entertaining show. While protecting our players and making sure that they're taken care of and that the orgs feel like the investment is worthwhile for them. We're ultimately making the show for our fans, and so if our fans are all telling us that they want something, if it makes sense, we're open to doing it. Yeah.
Do you ever feel like you're maybe too close to see something that may be common sense, just an extra set of eyes coming in out of
I
nowhere?
think that's always a problem, right? When you're working on anything, like when you're too close to it, you kind of get blinded by some of the things, or you're so used to looking at things from a specific lens. But I mean, it feels great because our audience is so committed to growing with us too, so that we feel like we have this good relationship with them, and that we're able to kind of take their feedback and action upon it. So,
right on. What's been your favorite experience thus far in the HGC?
Oh man, I think every quarter, if you ask me that, I'll have a new one. So this last midseason brawl was pretty amazing. I made it to the on-shipping portion, the bracket stage portion, and just the final day was amazing. We got to see the All-Stars program, and they did an All-Stars match on Alterac Pass. So I think we did a good job of kind of bringing Alterac Pass to our audience via our professional players. Like watching pros play on this brand new map kind of, I think, gave people a better idea right from the get-go of how to play on that map. So I think that was really exciting to execute on and see how it performed and see how the audience received it. And it was received well, so we're really happy about that. And then just like the matches from the teams that were playing in the final games that day were insane. Like the final set between Dignitas and Gen.g it was some of the most exciting matches I think I've ever seen in Heroes Esports. So, outside of some more notable ones from a few years back, but it was just so exciting to be there in the crowd. It was so hype. It was like BlizzCon level hype.
Yeah.
So that was really great. I'm looking forward. I think we have big shoes to fill for the HGC finals after that midseason brawl, but I think we can bring it. I think the audience at BlizzCon will be even hyper. Yeah.
Right on. Glad to hear it. Last question.
Sure.
What are you most looking forward to with the HGC and its future?
Yeah, that's a good question. I think honestly, for me, I'm looking forward to being able to make this a permanent, like, full-time job for our players. And I am excited to see our audience continue to grow. So our audience has grown quite a bit this year. The game is continuing to grow. I think with that, we have an opportunity to kind of promote more talent. We've been trying to bring on and foster new talent from all around the world. Like we brought Vandy out for Western Clash 1. We've been working with Skimmy. Both of them are from Australia and New Zealand territory. We're bringing our players out to our other events because they can kind of bring a unique angle that only a pro player that can play at that level can kind of bring to our audience. Continuing to grow the broadcast, continuing to evolve our offering to the audience, and hopefully continuing to receive positive feedback from them.
Right on. In closing, is there anything you'd like to plug or anything you'd like to say to the community?
Heroes of the Storm is growing. Our audience has been telling us that, and the game has been growing, and the game team has lots of cool content this year. They have more amounts for next year. So if you're ever interested in checking out Heroes of the Storm, it's a fast-paced, team-based MOBA. Lots of different battlegrounds and exciting. Now's a good time. It's a good time for Heroes of the Storm.
Excellent. John, thank you so much for your time, man. I appreciate it. It's good talking to you.
Yeah.